Welcome to the Spoonful Show. I'm Rachel, and this is a space for real conversations about chronic illness, hope, and learning to keep going even on the hardest days. Because strength doesn't always look loud, sometimes it's simply taking life one spoon at a time. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Spoonful Show. I'm your host, Rachel, and I am so grateful that you're here with me today. We're going to talk about the emotional reality of living with limited and unpredictable energy. My guest today is Michele Roys, author of But You Look Just Fine, a powerful memoir about chronic pain, invisible illness, grief, healing, and rediscovering joy after life completely changes. Michele lives with trigeminal neuralgia, fibromyalgia, and Lyme disease. And through her writing and advocacy, she speaks openly about the emotional reality of living with limited and unpredictable energy, the constant internal calculations, the pressure to keep pushing through, and learning how to stop overriding your body in the name of productivity. In today's conversation, we talk about the spoon theory, pacing, perfectionism, guilt, rest, identity, and what it really means to build a meaningful life alongside chronic illness instead of constantly fighting against it. Michele's story is honest, vulnerable, and validating. And I'm so grateful to share this conversation with you. Let's get started. Michele, I'm so grateful that you're here with me today. Welcome to the Spoonful Show.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
It's nice to have you. For people who are just meeting you today, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to write your book, But You Look Just Fine?
That's a great question. My story started completely different from this. I was a high achiever. I had lived in 10 countries, 4 continents, working, completely career ladder kind of success person. And my health took a toll, completely left me. And with trigeminal neuralgia, then afterwards diagnosed with fibromyalgia and Lyme disease. So it was a huge undertaking and something that shifted my whole life upside down. And from there, I decided to find a purpose through it because it was very challenging, especially in the beginning of my journey. And I decided to write a book so I could reach one person out there that felt like me and felt like their life was just upside down. And how do you find joy again? So that's the start. The start of my book was journaling. It was actually 4 years work to get this book done. And then later my podcast and also being an advocate and speaker for chronic pain and also finding joy through the storm, not waiting for it to pass, because I feel a lot of us feel that that has to be first, right?
Right, right. I love that. I love that. So, your book title, But You Look Just Fine, immediately hits something that so many people with invisible illness experience. So, what did that phrase come to represent for you?
Rachel, I felt that so much, especially in the beginning. I was in so much pain and I didn't have a clear answer, a clear diagnosis. And the doctors, said you from one side to the next. And you had so many different doctors that are you sure it's not in your head and all of those things. And for me, it was very difficult to even navigate that because if you had known me from before, you knew that I couldn't stay still for a minute, much less being completely bedridden. So it was a completely different way of looking. But my body looked fine. My face looked fine. And you're like, are you sure? Even for me, I would look at myself in the mirror like, am I sure I'm fine? What is going on? So I heard it so many times and it hurt because I felt unseen. I felt
Mm,
like you're not understanding the level and the depthness of the amount of pain. And it's just not the physical, because that was already hard enough, but the mental, the exhaustion, the guilt that you feel, and everything that was taken away from me. So in that small thing of, well, you look just fine. Are you sure it's not in your head? It really made me feel even less of a person. So I feel that's why the title of my book, I was like, I heard it so many times. And I know a lot of people can identify with that because we don't have something physically wrong or a cast
yeah.
or a crutch or something that they could say, oh, you need help. But yeah, that's where the title came in. And that's how I felt so many times.
It brings up so many emotions because you're right. It's just not somebody saying, "Oh, you look good. You look fine," but brings up so many of those emotions, especially with people who maybe are still in the diagnosis phase or are trying to figure out their lives with limited energy and it brings up so many more emotions than people think, you know?
Yes. No, absolutely, and it's still to this day, I have to kind of give myself a little bit of, "It's okay, Michelle, they don't understand it," but in
Yeah.
the beginning, for me, it was like, how can you not see it? And I know it's hard for them to see it, and especially those of us that are struggling, and like you said, finding a diagnosis and putting a label, and you're going through thousands of different exams, tests, scans, everything in between, and you still don't have answers. So it can become very belittling. And I feel a lot of times because people just don't, they're not aware that there's something else that could be happening with you. And so it behooves us to share that part of our story so that they can start learning and start understanding, you
Yeah.
know?
I really resonated with your story because of your pre-diagnosis self of going, 100 miles an hour and being successful, and when I had to stop working, I went through a lot of grief and just a lot of emotions about having to slow down. And one thing I realized in your book was how much energy that you were using when your body was struggling to kind of mask what your body was really going through.
Yeah. And I think we do that so much. You
Yeah.
know, we're trying to prove that we're still fine. We're trying to prove that we can still do things, and your body's saying, Hold up, stop, give me a little break." But it's so hard because, especially if our identity is held around that, our accomplishments, our accolades, or the things that we were able to do before, and when our body's slowing us down, and we're like, "Nope, can't hear you," then it has to get our attention another way. And being able to learn to pace, to actually use like the spoon theory and actually, okay, that's how much energy I have. Which decision am I going to make? This one, it's going to, it's always a cost to anything I do, but learning to go back and see that my body wasn't actually fighting me. It was trying to help me work with it, but I was just closed off to it for so long. So even the process of writing my book was how I was able to make that connection because I was in such big denial. And it is a huge grief, like you said for yourself. You come from one place and then you're completely on the polar opposite side. How do you navigate that? So even the arc of the book is all about the grief because
Mhm.
we have to go through the stages of denial, of bargaining, of slowly accepting and the anger, everything that comes in between. And I feel if we don't go through that, we will stay in that denial. No, everything is fine. Everything is fine. The doctor keeps saying it's fine. It's fine. But we're not actually going to get to the root of the problem. And a lot of times, the root of the problem is not just the illness itself, but it could be an emotional part, the trauma that needs to be fixed, that tenderness that we need to apply for ourselves again. So it's this whole world that we need to allow ourselves to dive in and go deep in it.
Yeah. You described this constant internal negotiation that happens in your mind, calculating your pain and your energy and your work and expectations. What did daily life look like behind the scenes when everyone thought that you were just fine?
So even before, when the beginning of my accidents or illnesses that started coming in, I was working in Dublin, so actually Wicklow, close to Dublin. So I'm in Limerick in Ireland. So it's a 2.5 hours drive. So at the beginning, I had to actually move 5 days out of the week over there, and my family was here. So just the emotional of that, with two smaller kids and my husband staying home, and I'm in another city, town, county working. So that was the beginning of it. And I felt like, well, if I just put my whole heart into work, then, everything is going to be fine. And every single accident, and the first one I even described there, I fell from the stairs and 7 steps, broke my big toe, hurt my back. The next day, I was sitting in my couch, my leg up, with a computer, I can still work. This is how unbelievable if I stop and look about it. Like I was in so much pain, but I couldn't stop because I felt that if I did stop, then I would be seen as not good enough or my promotion at work is going to be jeopardized. So I had to keep that pretense. I had to keep pushing through it. And I feel so many of us do that, especially ambitious type A ones that are out
Mhm.
there, right? Like yourself. We can't stop. But then it's really from that part of us feeling not good enough, that we're not sufficient enough. And it's our sense of self worth. So it's misplaced. So it takes our body stopping us for us to be able to go back to say, you know what? I am not the accolades. I am not all of those things. I'm still worthy of love just the way I am, without having to produce more or do more. But it comes from that subconscious as well. Like I was in Brazil, so I was born in Brazil. So it's a very different culture than in Europe, and having to adjust to all of those expectations as well. You feel like you always have to constantly prove yourself because you're a foreigner. You're not from here. You have to do more than the people around you. So I've always had that anyway. So it takes a toll. And people feel even now, I still push myself to be out, to go on to appointments, to be part of the networks around and be able to express this message. But I have to take care of myself in between of what I want to do and what my body can do. So the pacing continues now and bigger than before because I don't want to have a relapse. I don't want to have a crash. And it's this ups and down, and the waves of it. You really have to listen to your body and prepare. I was in the States recently, and I had to literally, a week before I traveled, pace myself. Nothing. And then when I come back, I've been 2 weeks back, and I'm still taking my time. I still haven't been completely over the flu that I got, everything else, because my body was like, too much.
Yeah.
So it's literally listening and giving yourself that buffer time always,
Yeah.
and being okay with it. Because I
Mhm.
think a lot of times we feel guilty for taking rest and you actually need to rest, you know?
In the beginning of the book, your body seems to be giving you warning signs, but you keep pushing through anyway, as many of us do. So, looking back now, what do you think you were trying so hard to prove?
I think I was trying to prove that I was enough, that I could become very successful in Europe and as a mother and juggling it all. I prided myself on how much stuff I could fit in my suitcase. I would say my suitcase of the day, you have 24 hours, everybody has the same. How do you pack your suitcase? And I was like, I pack it so well. And I did pack it extremely well, but to what cost? And that cost was my health. And I felt that I was trying to prove to that little one because I felt there was a lot of trauma that I had to work through, but that to the little one that I was good enough. And it comes back to that sense of self worth, which I think is really wrapped up in this need to be so pushy, to be so active, to be go, 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 you know, and it is a way of self-love, of not only self-love, but having affirmation, having to hear it from other people as well. So it's something that I'm still working through because I'm still a people pleaser recovery.
Mm.
I'm still a workaholic recovery. So there's all those tendencies and patterns that they don't just go away because you decided you have to work through because they've been ingrained in me for years. As my therapist says, like, Michelle, it's over 30 years that you've been going one way. Now you're trying to change it so it doesn't go, oops, as I wished. So it takes time.
Yeah. I think I'm in recovery with you. I feel you. There was a heartbreaking moment in the book, and I would like for you to kind of recount this for us of a literal tug of war game where your body
Yeah.
was screaming at you to stop. Can you tell us about that? And how do you feel like that moment kind of symbolized your relationship with yourself and your body?
Yeah, well, that's a great one. So I was literally at a family day out with my boys, and they were at a rugby pitch here in Limerick, and the mothers were going to be doing a tug of war game, literally, with just ladies. I actually didn't want to do it for some reason. I think I should have listened to myself first. And that competitive part of me comes out. Like, it really comes out. So anyway, so I am roped in, no pun intended, into this tug of wars, two teams, moms. We were doing okay at the beginning, and all of a sudden I feel that we're starting to lose, and I am not a good loser. Like, I'm not. So here I am holding this big rope, and we're heaving. I'm heaving, like, come on, come on. I'm trying to make sure these ladies will push because I'm pushing. And I literally could feel my back being stretched apart as I'm pushing. And I could feel my body screaming at me, So I kind of started letting go because I felt it really hard, but I started losing as well. And so I started pushing even harder in this situation. And I could feel my body screaming. And I was just literally, heave, heave. That's all I could say to the ladies. And by the time that the ropes fell to the floor, I could barely stand up. I literally could not hold my lower back, my thoracic spine, everything was in fire. And I ended up being taken to the hospital by ambulance. But the whole thing that I could think of is that I had a meeting with my CEO the next morning. So it was a Sunday. I was going to be driving up to Dublin. So all I needed was some medication. Get me out of here. Give me some painkillers. Get me out of here. But completely oblivious to the damage I actually had done in my back and my whole back. And when I was taken to hospital, and I explained this in the book as well, I was so stubborn, not wanting to take the green whistles they're saying that's just to be able to help you when you're doing with your a really strong pain, because I wanted to be completely in control. I wanted to be in control when I was talking to the doctor. I didn't want to be high as a kite, you know, completely neglecting the fact that my body was going through a horrendous amount of pain. So this is the part of the disconnect that it's crazy as I look back to see, wow, where was I? All I could think of, I need to be in this meeting tomorrow. I cannot think my body's in pain or that I can even get up to go pee on my own because the pain was so overwhelming, or that there was a possibility of me having a surgery. It was all like, this is insane. This can't be happening. It was just a small tug of war. But it was exactly what you said. I was not aware of my body. I was completely disconnected. My head was here. My whole body was there. And it's literally when I was able to write that story and look back, I could see, gosh, was I that blind to the disconnection that was going on? Was it because I didn't want to deal with the emotional part of it, a feeling of not good enough, or feeling that I wasn't capable of enough? So my body would be a representation of that. Oh, I'm ill. That means that somebody has to take care of me. I don't want anybody to take care of me. I can do it myself. So yeah, it hits a lot.
Mm. Walk us through the steps that you took to finally start listening to your body and treating it with the love that it needs.
I wish I could say it was like
Yes. It was a shot of whiskey or something, right?
yeah,
Something easy.
no, nothing quick. I think
Yeah.
that was one of the biggest thing is first making peace with time, because I felt that I could do this right away. Okay, give me an A to Z. I can tick the boxes, tell me what I need to do, and I'll do it. But that wasn't what I was actually learning through this journey. First, of course, therapy helped a lot. And then trying to take the time to allow time to heal me. And making peace with my body was growing from that part of, I hate you. How dare you leave me down? Why can't you just do these things for me? Why can't you hold me? Why can't you get away from this pain? That conversation that I was having with my body, frustrated with my body for not doing what I'm asking it to do. But I was in a place that I couldn't. And with trigeminal neuralgia, it's considered one of the most, as you know, most painful
Oh,
condition
yeah.
known to medicine. So here I am trying to literally tell my brain, this is not happening. And it's like, oh, yeah, it is. Look at this and you can feel it. So that learning to love my body really was gradual. And it was about seeing my body for all that it's gone through. It was literally the journals of my frustration was put on paper. And as I looked back at it, connecting these dots, gosh, my body brought me through so much. Look how much it has through the years. It's really looking back and then putting these things together and saying, wow, isn't it amazing? And it's all it's been trying to do is tell me that it loves me and it wants to work with me and not against me. And so as I started turning that focus inwardly, instead of trying to solve everything outwardly and start putting it back into me, that I felt this connection of what an amazing piece of art that I have. God has made me so beautifully with, made to be healed, but I just need to give it time. And time was another word that I hated it. Like, no. So it's making peace with yourself. And this is 7.5 years into this journey, Rachel. So
Yeah.
it's something that I'm still having to remind myself of, but I've come so far and I'm so grateful for that. But literally, writing it down really helps us to process our emotions and make sense for it. And for me, it was a huge way of learning to love my body, working on self-compassion, working on, with other therapies and my therapist as well, and looking at different things that I could do to help my body support it through what it was going through.
Wow. I'm going to stop here real quick. If you're living with something people don't see, POTS, multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, or anything like it, I made some t shirts, sweatshirts, and hoodies just for you, so you don't have to explain it. You can find them at spoonfulofstrength.etsy.com or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the show. Another thing that a lot of people with chronic illness will be able to relate to your book is the thought of rest. And you describe putting yourself through pain over and over because slowing down felt dangerous. So, what made rest feel so threatening?
Part of the rest was that when you're still, your mind is very active.
Yeah.
You have nothing else but your mind to be contending with. So I hated the rest because I had to stop and think. And part of the things that I was thinking was not good. Very negative self-talk. The whole thing, you're not good enough, how dare you not be able to do this?
Yeah.
That part that we can beat ourselves up with a rod if we had it. And that criticism, that part of self-criticism was very, very heightened for me. So I felt unsafe resting because those voices would come up even harder. And it took really a lot for me to not necessarily shut the voices, but allow the inner voice of goodness, of kindness to speak through. Wow, you're amazing. You're still going. You're choosing to keep going. Michele, look at you. Those affirmations that I had to learn for myself took time. And it's saying about, how you dial down or dial up and learning to dial down on those voices. So rest for me became first, how dare you rest, right? Was the
Yeah.
first thing. You're so lazy. What are people going to think of you? Like, you're still resting, you're still sick? How come? They don't make that association that it's not like you can rest and all of a sudden you have all the energy back. No, chronic fatigue is different. So people don't understand that. And so I had to learn to tell myself that it was okay. And literally, like, hands to heart, and be able to say, you're okay, you're safe, it's good to rest, or allow myself to find more meditation and mindfulness with something that I really follow a lot. And even just looking outside, looking at the birds, or just being present. So my mind would be, instead of just going, whoop, it's not hushing it, it's bringing it back with awareness and bring it back to what you're doing. So finding ways to cope with that for us, especially of us that are with chronic illness, we struggle with that a lot. We feel guilty for resting. We feel guilty for not being able to do the things that we have to do or need to do. So yeah, it's a balance that keeps going.
It's a constant battle for so
Mm.
many of us. You described that pacing eventually became like self-respect instead of restriction. And I would love for you to explain that to us.
In the beginning, I always felt that if I pace, which is comes down to the fact of I'm not good enough, right? I I can't do this.
Mhm.
I can't run anymore. I can't walk for the hikes that we used to hike with my boys. I can't do all those things. But I started reframing that for what do I get to do? So I get to be around my boys. I still get to go out and I get to make things differently and adapt it. So I started adapting, for instance, going to the States or traveling. For me to go on a flight, just for anybody, it's already tiring. Just like to get to the airport.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably use almost all your spoons depending how you're doing. So I started using the, what are they called now? The access service, the wheelchair access.
Mhm.
So in the beginning for me, that was the hardest thing because I would look at these older people walking and I'm like, oh my God, here I am, But I know that this is the part. If I don't avail of that, by the time I get to wherever the destination is, I'm in bed the whole time. So there's no
Yeah.
point on. So how do I adapt where I am right now and how do I conserve my energy so that I'm able to live in the present and enjoy the things that I enjoy? So I started to reframe it like I get VIP treatment now.
Mhm.
So instead of just saying, oh my God, I'm getting a wheelchair, I'm like, no, I'm VIP. So my brain can reframe it. And that makes it possible for me to still do these things that I love. We always love traveling. And so it's something that we can still do as a family. And yes, I might have to go in a wheelchair. And hey, great. These are really long airports most of the time. And for you to get from one place to another, can't be standing up for too long, can't be sitting for too long, you can't be, walking for too long. There's all these different things that we have, not even time management, we have literally stops. We can't do it, period. So availing of that reframing makes me respect my body where it's at. So how can I still participate in these things that I love? And how can I do it differently
Mhm.
so that I can feel good about it and respecting my body instead of just saying, oh my God, you're useless. You can't even walk. And how dare you not be able to just, that old person can do it. That comparison that I've always have. And I know a lot of us can feel the same way. But I'm in my own journey. They're in their journey. How can I keep going and without trying to compare? So that's what my pacing has helped me a lot. And I really encourage anyone that's going through challenges. How can you make your life easier for yourself and forget whatever people are going to think? They're going to think whatever they're going to think. It
Yeah.
doesn't change the fact that you have to honor yourself because you are on your journey and you, as a strong warrior, need to keep going. And it's hard to just show up each day. And just the fact that we're doing that, kudos to us.
Yeah.
People don't see that struggle. So adapting that, reframing it helps us connect to our body and actually listen. What do I need right now? Do I need a little stop? Do I need a little rest? And it's okay because we deserve it.
It's amazing how the self-talk I ran into that negative self-talk for years, and it was devastating, and you talk about, "Oh, I get to be a VIP today," and I love that the power of self-talk, it can be devastating for you, but it can also uplift you and reframe your mind of thinking of completely shifting your thoughts, and I just love that. It's so
Thank you.
powerful.
It certainly is. And we do have a lot of power in our thoughts and our
Mhm.
mind, right? We can't change the first thought. We can definitely change the next thought and know how we react to it. So absolutely that able to reframe it has really been key in my healing journey to get me from, gosh, where I was. And even when I look back, I was like, I was in a bad place, but to
Mhm.
where I am right now. And knowing that my story can help others, it really solidifies for me, changing your pain into purpose and transforming that, like you're doing with your podcast. You're giving
Mhm.
light and you're giving people an opportunity to hear that they're and make sure that they feel seen as well, that they're not alone in this. So well done.
Thank you, that's so kind, I appreciate it. At one point in your story, it shifts from surviving to actually almost like rediscovering joy again. So what helped open that door for you?
I think part of that is connecting to my younger self, and that comes from my roots being Brazilian. We are surrounded by music and dance, and having my mom, when I first got sick, come over and see me in the way I was. And she's like, you need music. Music is healing. For me, became a therapy. So it connected me to something. For each person is different, but for me, definitely music and dancing was that part that made me feel alive again, feel like I could forget the pain just for that moment and be transported. So it really made a difference in just listening to music. And for me, Latin music, they're usually very upbeat. And then finding that in the community. So we go dancing, and I say we go dancing. I go as much as I can and I do as much as I can, but it's still in proportions. And it's something we do with my family. So my husband and my son as well, he comes with us every Wednesday to one of our dance, salsa and bachata and kizomba dance. but it's the community around it. Everybody is happy. Everybody is just with this huge smile. It just lifts me up. Even though it's hard, even though I might come back earlier, whatever it is, it's just about showing up and making that commitment. And I think finding our joy again, and you said it right, I feel that I had like that survival mode and into more of a thriving again. I don't want to live with chronic illness, and I'm not going to be defined by chronic illness. I want to thrive once again and make an impact through this. So how can I find it? Through find the joy through art. I feel it's one of the single best way, if you're doing pottery, drawing, painting, calligraphy, whatever it is that helps you just be present. So for me, it's dancing. Dancing and music has really helped lift my spirit. And it just changed the shifts because I think if you think about it, both sides of your brain is working. So it's just putting that part together just in that sense. It really helps your body to come together in one, slow down, and it feels safe. So, yeah, music has been a key, a different way of even looking at it. I explored a lot and I explained that in the book as well,
Yeah.
that I really made a point to observe dancing and allow my body to feel it. Even though most people don't see when you come back home, infrared light therapy, you know, 3
Mhm.
or 4 days might take for you to regroup that energy, but it feels so soul-filling that I'll do it again and again and again.
It's so worth it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that because I feel like sometimes you get to a point where you're almost afraid to do things and afraid to go out and experience things that you used to because you don't wanna have to deal with the next day and the day after, and I love that you realize how special that is and
Mhm.
and how much it does for you to be able to do it at your pace and keeping that in your life.
Oh, yeah, and when you said that, it's so important because we do isolate ourselves. It's much easier for us to just be home, just stay on the blankets because seriously, it takes so much out of us to participate in life. But that's where beauty is formed once again. That's where the connections are made. That's where we're able to feel part of a community. And I think it's so important for us to feel part of that community. So that's why for me, I make it a non negotiable. These are the things that I have to do, church, dancing. Those are my main solid ground that I have to do. Of course, family time with my family, but they're around me. But if we don't do that, then it's very easy for us to just get soaked in and become that negative spiral, but in the opposite way. And we can get into a very, very dark place. So it's being able to say, okay, I want to be able to change. I want to be able to be part of life. What can I do? And start small,
Mhm.
tiny little things, and discover different things. Like some people like gardening, and they might not
Yeah.
be able to do. Like, I used to love gardening. That I can like use that, but a lot of times I might be able to plant a couple flowers. This year, my husband had to do all of them, and I can still sit there and appreciate it. Said how beautiful it's blooming, great. But my energy levels this year has been different than I had before, and it's okay. I
Yeah.
just can pace with it instead of allowing myself to, oh my God, I didn't plant any flowers. They're
Mm.
still beautiful regardless,
Mhm.
but it's how we react to it, to the
Yeah.
challenges we're facing, no?
Mm. What does strength mean to you now compared to the woman that I met in the first part of the book?
Wow. Strength right now means just being present. It's not about how many things am I juggling. It's about right now, am I being present with myself? Am I being present with the person I'm in right now? I think that's where strength really lies, and it's in the small moments, not in the big things, the big achievements. It's the tiny moments, the connection, because those are the deep, deep seated connections that just blooms and makes us feel part of something bigger.
For somebody who might be listening to this podcast who feels exhaustion of trying to kind of keep up appearances while struggling with limited spoons, what would you want them to hear?
You don't have to prove to anyone that you're not doing well. You need to be honest with yourself and with them, because it's best for them to understand where you're coming from than you exhausting yourself, because it's already hard enough to struggle with whatever it is that you have, whatever illness you have. that's huge already. So just be honest, and it's okay.
Where can our listeners find your book and follow your story?
So on micheleroys.com, so Michele, it's with one L only, roys.com is the best way to contact me. And the book is there as well. And everything else is there. So I have a YouTube, Instagram, and what else? TikTok. I think I have everything.
Yeah.
And those things, and yeah, and the Michelle Roy Show, I also have a podcast, and I love to hear from listeners. I really do. It really encourages me. I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah.
It does help when they pass on, share and do like this podcast because we never know the next person that's hearing how much more this means for them.
Yeah. And we'll make sure and link everything in our show notes so that
Thank you.
they'll quickly be able to find your book and to follow along.
Thanks,
Michelle,
Rachel.
thank you so much for sharing your story so openly. I think what I love most about your book is it doesn't just talk about chronic illness, but more so the invisible weight of dealing with constantly pushing through in that battle that we all deal with. And trying to appear okay and learning how to live with limitations and finding joy in your story again. And so I can't thank you enough for sharing your book with me, but also for sharing these wonderful words with our listeners today.
Rachel, I'm very, very grateful to be here. Thanks for giving me the opportunity as well. And I do want to share, I actually just won the International Impact Book Awards for the book, which I'm so
Wow.
grateful for because it is an impacting the lives of others, as you're saying. So it was worth it. It was worth it. I'm very grateful for it.
Oh, congratulations on that. I can
Thank
attest
you.
that it's 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 just a wonderful book, and I urge everyone out there to give it a read because it
Thank
really does open your eyes to a lot of things, and it really resonates with so many themes of chronic illness. So, boy,
you.
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank God.
Oh,
It's trying to help others, and look, I even telling myself, I almost didn't write this book because it is so vulnerable, it's so much
mhm.
openness, but at the same time, I know that that's what speaks to people, that they can feel seen in it, so I'm so grateful, and thanks
Yes,
so much for this opportunity, Rachel. I appreciate it.
you're so welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode with Michelle Roys. What I loved most about the conversation is that Michelle reminds us that strength doesn't always look loud. Sometimes strength looks like slowing down, listening to your body, honoring your limits, and learning that rest is not a failure. Her story is an important reminder that living with chronic illness is so much more than physical symptoms. It's the invisible emotional weight, the grief, and the constant energy calculations, and the journey of rebuilding trust with yourself again. I highly encourage you to check out her book, But You Look Just Fine, and follow her work. I'll make sure Michelle's links are included in the show notes. And as always, thank you for saving some spoons to be with me today. Until next time, take care. Just a quick reminder, everything shared here is based on personal experiences. Please consult your doctor for your own care.